All right, so number 25 today, and we'll do one a week for the next 25 weeks. We're gonna
Buckle up.
Yeah, we're gonna draw
Settle
this thing
in.
out. Yeah. So number 25, we go back all the way back to 2009.
Rebound by Rondo, with all kinds of congestion inside. Rondo with his 7th rebound.
Well, can the Celtics free up either Ray Allen or Paul Pierce? The Bulls have their defense loaded to guard those guys. Can they free up one of those guys for a shot?
It's Pierce. Salmons fights through a screen. No one knocked it away. Galloping with Pierce. And Paul Pierce has just fouled out of the game. Joakim Noah has just given the Chicago Bulls a 2-point lead with his 8th point tonight with a quick defensive play at the other end.
How about the speed of the big man? Paul Pierce, you see Joakim Noah get a passing lane. Paul Pierce should have let this go. I mean, he knows he's got 5 fouls. You cannot defend that play. He is now out of the game. I mean, Paul Pierce has got to let that go. How about the speed, though, of Joakim Noah, the concentration? What a play.
Noah with his first points in the paint in overtime.
And we finish it up with this free throw. Big play. Huge.
Timeout Boston. They have 2 left. Joakim Noah on a huge stage in front of a national audience with the steal, the gallop, and the sledgehammer. Noah 9. Chicago on top by 3.
Game 6, 2009, in a first-round series between the Bulls and Celtics that would go 7 games.
And overtime was a common theme in that series. By the way, that was Doug, wasn't it?
It was 2 of my favorite. I mean, it's Kevin Harlan and Doug Collins, who I hope is listening right now in his backyard in Scottsdale. We love Doug Collins. Should be in basketball's Hall of Fame for all of the accomplishments as a player, as an Olympian, as a coach, as a broadcaster, and all of his contributions to the National Basketball Association. And yeah, like it's the Bulls lost that series, but that triple overtime game, that moment when Joakim Noah and really his arrival, when he became such an important player on the Chicago Bulls and him going the length of the floor as a center dribbling and them winning that game 6 against, I believe the Celtics were the defending champions. Kevin Garnett was out, but as you read, you were doing it. It is ranked as one of the best series in NBA history.
Some believe that it's the best playoff series in NBA history, or at least it would get some votes. And by the way, game 1 was an overtime game. Obviously, Bulls won that. Game 4 was a double overtime. Bulls won that. Game 5 was an overtime game. Celtics won that. And then obviously the 3 overtimes in game 6, the Bulls won that one. So 4 overtime games in a series.
4 overtimes of the 7. The other piece of history besides that triple overtime win that you heard from the exact moment, and we can encapsulate the entire 7-game series. Derrick Rose, his first playoff game was game 1 against the Celtics. And he scored 36 points in game 1. At the time, that tied Lou Alcindor, because that was his Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's name as a rookie, for the most points in a playoff debut by a rookie in NBA history.
He also had 11 assists in that game.
Yes. So, like, there's so much history to go into that. So all the Bulls' legendary moments in their history, and remember, this is only in the 25 years. So that's where we start number 25. Game 6 specifically, that series as a whole brings it up and makes it 25. We all remember where we were. I was supposed to go to a party that night at Ghost Bar. I lived above Ghost Bar at the time, above the restaurant 9.
Did you put your stonewashed jeans on?
I didn't have stonewashed. No. But at the time, because of your influence, I was drinking scotch.
You bet. Yes.
And I was very nervous. And the game was going longer because it was a triple overtime game. And so I poured myself a scotch towards the end of the game. And then as it went into overtime, I had to have another glass of scotch.
Started drinking them like beers.
And then the next thing I knew, I was like 4 or 5 scotches in, and I couldn't go out at the end of the night. I was completely hammered, but I also had Bulls euphoria after they just tied the series against the Celtics 3-3 going to a game 7. You know,
I was in a car in Cincinnati driving around with my father, I believe. That's where I believe.
Me just driving around.
Well, we were back in Cincinnati. We were going to see family members, and I believe that's where I was for that game. I believe we were trying to get out of that. We had stopped and we were going to go into somewhere, but I sat in the car to listen to it. But like crazy, just crazy.
Where were you, Tyler? Were you junior high?
He was in his crib.
Yeah, I was 12 years old. And I really mean his crib. I was 12 years old at the time. I remember my entire family, we were gathered in the basement watching it. And it got to a point where I was getting superstitious, where I could not move. If I moved, I was going to somehow disrupt the balance of the universe and make the Bulls lose. So I remember I was sitting still, just watching this game. And then at the end of the game, after they had won, I stood up and I almost fainted because I hadn't moved in almost 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I remember that game. That's one of like my core childhood sports memories is this game.
Yeah.
Did you have 4 scotches too, like Silvy, at the age of 12?
I had with the way my blood was flowing, probably the equivalent.
Meller, you're not the biggest Bulls fan. Do you remember this well?
I remember exactly where I was because
you were on a ski trip.
I was celebrating my 2nd wedding anniversary with my wife. It was April 30th, 2009. We were married on May 3rd, 2007. So we had a weekend getaway. Back when you would, 2nd anniversary, we're going away for the weekend to celebrate that anniversary. So we were in New York. I was actually attending my first Broadway musical, South Pacific. And as the game was unfolding, I was staring at my phone the entire time. Now, this is before video streams on your phone were easily accessible. I could watch the game on the ESPN Gamecast, which I did virtually the entire first half of the play. But then I had to go home and watch all the highlights.
Right. They could have won it a couple of different times, and they didn't. I was just so nervous. And it was, again, like there were a lot of things that we had to cut out. At the end of this feature, when we get hit number 1, we're going to list you all the things that we wanted to include, but we couldn't include because we also wanted to sort of spray the infield and hit a lot of different moments that actually won't make the list. This was one that we really wanted to make the list because, I mean, just listen. A lot of people who were there will say, this is one of the times for a Bulls game that it was the loudest since Michael played. There were a couple times when Derek played with the 2010-11 Bulls where it got very loud too. But listen to the roar as Joakim goes end to end.
Rebound by Rondo. With all kinds of congestion inside, Rondo with his 7th rebound.
Well, can the Celtics free up either Ray Allen or Paul Pierce? The Bulls have their defense loaded to guard those guys, and they free up one of those guys for a shot.
It's Pierce. Selmans fights through a screen. No one knocked it away. Galloping with Pierce.
Listen to that.
And Paul Pierce has just fallen out of the game. Joakim Noah has just given the Chicago Bulls a 2-point lead with his 8th point tonight with a great defensive play at the other end.
How about the speed of the big man? Paul Pierce, you see Joakim Noah get a passing lane. Paul Pierce should have let this go. He knows he's got 5 fouls. You cannot defend that play. He is now out of the game.
Such a great moment.
Do you remember what else happened in that game? Do you remember the different events, different things? I would think when I mentioned these to you, I'm sure you remember. You mentioned Derek's, how he played. First of all, do you know who the starting 5 for
this is good because I was about to bring it up in the pre-show, and then I didn't because I wanted to save it for the air. One of the unsung heroes on that team in that series was John Salmons.
Yeah.
remember, Luol Deng did not play in that series. He was out for the year, I want to say, with a wrist he had a broken wrist, I want to say. And the Bulls, it was one of the Gar Pax's better trades. They go to Sacramento and they get this guy, John Salmons, who fit into the team perfectly. And he was one of our favorite players.
Yeah.
And
he was part of the starting five.
And Ben Gordon went off in that entire series. I want to say in that double overtime win at the United Center earlier in the series, Ben had a great game where he may have scored 40 or something like that.
Okay, so you got Salmons.
Right.
You also have Derek.
Kirk Heinrich is the other guard. No?
Ben Gordon was Derrick Rose, Ben Gordon, John Salmons, Tyrus Thomas, and Joakim Noah.
Okay. Where was Kirk? Was Kirk
was on the play, was there. In fact, Kirk, remember, it says we can't forget Kirk Heinrich going right at Rajon Rondo at the end of the first quarter.
Yes.
And by the way, Ray Allen had 51 in that game.
Yes. I mean, remember, Kevin Garnett's like on the bench. He's out, and he is MFing everybody from the bench. Do you remember all the trash that he was talking? And do you remember who else is on the Celtics bench? Diagramming the defense.
Was it Tibbs?
Tibbs.
Yeah.
It's John Paxson looking over at Tibbs, saying, as soon as I can fire this clown Vinny Del Negro, I'm going to hire Tibbs as my next head coach. Then I'm going to argue with him. And then I'm going to fire him. Then I'm going to hire Fred Hoiberg. Jim in Libertyville, you're on ESPN 1000. What's up, Jim?
Hey, guys, can you hear me?
Yeah. Perfectly.
Picking up my kids from the bus. So sorry about that.
No worries.
Anyways, short story about that series, which was epic. I was living in Wrigleyville at the time, and I believe game one was obviously the epic Derrick Rose game. I believe the Cubs were playing the Cardinals that weekend. So living in Wrigleyville, everything was going bonkers. It was early in the Cubs season. Everyone was going crazy. I remember this drunk guy living across the street from me in Wrigleyville that had a TV outside, and we were walking past, and he was watching the game and kept on saying, legend, every time Derrick Rose scored a point. And it stuck with us for a while. And then fast forward to game 6, I was actually in Key West for my bachelor party. So we were in Key West. We had the entire bar going bonkers as Joakim stole the ball and tied the game. It was like, as you guys said, it was such a memorable series. Too bad they lost, but it remains in my mind as one of the most epic series all time.
Yeah. By the way, you mentioned John Salmons. He played 59 minutes in that game and scored 35 points.
Yes. Can you click on? I've got it too. I want to click on the double overtime game. Which one was that? I'm trying to think. What game was the double overtime game?
I think it might have been game 4. Let me see.
Yeah, game 4.
121. Because I want to see what.
Yeah, that was game 4.
Because Gordon had a really big game in one of them.
Yeah, he scored 22 in that game.
42 in game 2.
Okay, 42 in game. That's the game. And they lost that game too. And then in game 7, the Bulls got actually lost by 10, and Ben Gordon had 33 in that game. Jordan and Maryville, you're on ESPN 1000. What's up, Jordan?
What's going on, guys? Yeah, I was at that game, man. That was one of the best moments as far as a Bulls fan. Being at a game I've ever had. And I remember we were a little late coming into the game, but the first thing that we heard when we walked into the game was the "F.U. Rondo" chant. You know, it was insane. But I was telling the producer, I'm surprised you guys didn't use the Chuck Swirsky call on that. That was a great call he made on that play as well.
We could look for it, but we love the Harlan Doug Collins call. Yeah, those are our guys too. And it's going to be interesting. We were not unanimous on what number 1 was. That's the only hint I'll give you. What will be number 1? We will go through the weeks, 1 a week for the next 25 weeks. And just because the radio station started October 1st, 1998, it doesn't mean that's where the sports moment starts. If a sports moment happened from 1998 on. We're going last 25 years. This goes from all of 1998 through 2023. Those are where the moments are. Those 25 years. 312-332-3776.
Did you get the tangles with number 25?
Yes, I got the goosebumps.
Do you remember this part too? This was in the first quarter when Rondo and Heinrich had their little tussle too at the scorers table.
Yes, yeah. It was great, fantastic, and that's when Kirk Heinrich could defend.
Yeah,
and he'd get after you.
You liked him then, right?
Yeah, absolutely.